Hi there, welcome to this week session. As usual, what we're going to be doing over here is to run through the markets, kind of highlight some of the key direction as well as opportunities available for the week that I think it's worth monitoring. And of course, after that, I'll take a quick look and see if you guys have any particular questions, and we'll address those questions along the way. Okay, so last week we did have our NFP. Okay, however, from a dollar index perspective, not much of a shift in terms of the overall structure and direction. Now, most of the time, high impact news, very important data points might potentially shift the entire technical structure. But this NFP latest one didn't really move much, right? So from dollar index perspective, we did hit our key level, which is something that we're looking out for last week, anticipating that we are gonna see that 1, 2, 3 wave going into the key level. We did achieve that objective, right? And price currently is reacting off that area around 100.30. Now, overall structure here, I think dollar index, I'm still primarily gonna be maintaining a bearish bias. I think the slight part here that is a little bit unclear as of now. That's why you can see the trade plans essentially be patient and see price how react first. It's because this might just be a while it's a three-wave move, it can be the completion of a first set, and then this can pull back correctively, and then we make another deeper move back up. Potentially coming back to where this area is, which is around 101.80, right? And that would still be a very valid wave for more downside. Okay. So as of now, I think the overall perspective here is to be slightly patient, and if I zoom back in, we would like to see how price is gonna react after tagging that key area, right? Are we gonna get a simple 1, 2, 3 corrective pullback towards this low here? If we do get a corrective pullback, then we can expect one more upside, right, to give us a bigger WXY. Alternatively, if this is just going to come back down impulsively, taking out that low, then of course we can also assume that wave 4 is completed and we start to look for more downside. Okay, so this one here probably would need a little bit of a time to really determine whether we're gonna get short-term more upside or the upside retracement is completed. Okay. So my take here is give it another 2 days. Maybe by Wednesday we'll get a little bit more clarity, and then I'll update the analysis accordingly as we progress. Okay. Then we have the euro dollar. I think pretty much the inverse relationship of the dollar itself. I think can see over here. Price came down, tagged the key area. Currently have a little bit of a reaction, right? So this can be seen as a three-wave move down. Okay, so again, wave 4, is it completed here, or we're gonna see a deeper wave 4? We'll need to give it a little bit more time. Okay, so this is essentially just gonna be the inverse of dollar index, right? If you see a corrective move coming to tag this high, then we can expect one more drop. All right, then that will be a WXY, a bigger three-wave move. Alternatively, if this just goes up impulsively, taking out this high, then wait for it completed, we can start to look for more upside. All right, so this one here, we're just gonna give it another 2 days. By mid-week, we'll probably get a little bit more clarity in terms of like euro dollar. GBP USD. This one here, if you zoom out, right, we are still in an overall bullish sequence. So you can see primary sequence is still basically bullish, right? I think the uptrend is still intact. But after the recent move here, you can see, okay, the recent move here, we are expecting a pullback minimal towards the 382, which put us at 1.3160. And therefore, right now, short term, we are looking at potential short opportunities, right? Looking to trade a pullback. For this particular pair, I really don't have a setup right now because we didn't really get a nice clean break of this low, right? If the market actually gave us an impulsive break below, and then after that starting a pullback, we can technically trade this pullback to the downside. We haven't really get that, break and close below that swing low, right? So what this can still be developing is eventually this can still, I would say not eventually, but potentially this can still turn into a extended move before the pullback, right? So I'm just gonna be a little bit cautious on that. Um, it's definitely not a buy setup at the moment, um, but I'm not too eager to be looking at the sell side unless we can't take out this low. Okay? So in terms of overall structure, there are some clarity, I would say, but in terms of like setup, there's really nothing, right? So this one probably not going to be the focus for the week. Aussie dollar here, we are looking at possible pullback soon. The overall structure is basically still bullish, right? You can see the overall structure is basically still bullish. Expectations for price to start to retrace, right? But we'll only get the confirmation that price indeed started retracing if we can take out some of these lows. Right, so this is gonna take some time, unless you're gonna be like super aggressive and then start to look at a lower time frame double top structure, okay, and then anticipate and try to catch that initial pullback. So if you're a bit more conservative, probably just gonna be patient on this, and wait for an impulsive break below 6340, which is this low here. If you're a little bit more aggressive, then of course you can look into a lower time frame for a little bit of a double top, break of the neckline, and then can start looking out for the sell side. Okay. So this one here, I'm just going to be putting this aside for the week itself. I don't think there's going to be anything meaningful on the Aussie. Okay. Dollar CAD is something going to be interesting for the week. This has been developing for a good 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, and I would look at it from a perspective where this diagonal may have potentially be completed. It does have all the criteria. Okay, if you take out the RSI, you can see that there's a very obvious divergence that is built up with this diagonal. Structurally, it has also a 5-wave internal, so that's also a completion of a diagonal. Smaller time frame here, you can see we have swept this liquidity, right? We have swept this low. The only remaining criteria that we want to get a confirmation is for price to break that minor high, right? So that would be around 3865, right? So that's where the trade plan is, right? Wait for an impulsive move above 3865. We would then expect the diagonal to be completed and potentially pull back. Okay. Now, if you're going to be very conservative, the first key level here is going to be at 3980, right, which is where that previous high is. But if you ask me, I think there is a very good possibility we're going to see more upside from here. Okay, I mean, price has been coming down quite aggressively, right? So we're expecting the pullback to at least be sizable, at least coming back towards like 4150, okay, which is where this low is. So keeping an eye on this, it's not going to be like an overnight setup, okay, because the conditions and the criteria here is for price to break above that minor high, pull back, and then we have that buy trade setup, right? It may actually set us up for a potential trade within the week, but definitely not like, I wouldn't foresee this in the first half of the week, right? This would likely be something maybe the second half of the week, okay, closer towards Thursday and Friday. Yeah, so do keep an eye on the dollar CAD. Definitely something meaningful is setting up, right? Just pay attention to that, have it in your watch list. Dollar yen, overarching trend is definitely still bearish. If I kind of zoom out, we are kind of making lower low, low high, but this is definitely short-term upside, right? The little bit of a complexity in this structure here is we can see this as a WXY, and if that's the case, this can actually start coming back down, in terms of like trend continuation. Alternatively, again, what can be developing is this can be just a first set of a sequence, a corrective pullback, and then we can look for more upside, right? So that would be a WXY as a bigger W, right? And then X and Y, right? So oftentimes when the market has completed a set of three, it's not the clearest of all, okay? But I feel that overall, if you are comfortable with it, there is actually still that buy setup, right? The idea here is you're not gonna get you're never gonna be like 100% sure what's gonna happen in the market, right? Because that's how trading works. It's all about probability. So to me, if you're comfortable with the risk, the setups and conditions, um, there is actually a buy setup here that we can look to actually expect this to continue higher, right? So of course, if you are kind of monitoring the market a little bit closer, you want to have this pullback coming down correctively towards your entry. That would be a better one, right? Then we'll then still be looking at short term at least, trading the pullback to the upside. So that's on the dollar yen. Okay. I do personally have that buy limit, but of course, ideally, I wouldn't want the limit order to be tagged today, right? Because if this is going to come back down correctively, ideally, I want that limit order to be tagged, maybe tomorrow towards Wednesday. So then it takes time to actually pull back, means that it's corrective in nature. Okay. So dollar yen definitely worth monitoring and having it in your watch list as well, similar to the dollar Canadian. Gold, yeah, gold here, it did eventually move in terms of what we have expected. The only difference, of course, is we always expect a simple pullback and a three-wave move, right? But of course, this internal piece in gold eventually developed more into sort of a triangle consolidation instead of a typical kind of like three-way structure. So to be honest, didn't really get the opportunity to be selling, though the direction is there. Right now, we are still expecting one more move, right? If this again can come back correctively, which means that this is your key area around the 50% retracement at 3350. To be honest, you can even look out for this swing high. Right, let me just change the right tool. Alright, you can even look out for the swing high as a potential key level for some sort of a liquidity sweep. And then, you can look out for a downside. So the expectation is kind of similar to the dollar index, right? This can be a three wave completion, that can be a first set of the move. This can be a second, and then this can be a third. Okay. Obviously, what can happen is this can be a 1, 2, 3, and then this can start to go higher as well because the overarching trend is due to the upside. Right. So again, I always like to say we never know 100% what's going to happen, but sometimes if you look into it, it does give you some clue. If this pullback is corrective again, it suggests that it can go down further first. If the move up is just going to be super intense and impulsive in nature, then it's suggesting that this is mainly that's the entire leg of the correction. Okay, so as of now, this is the primary take, but of course, you just want to give it a bit of time. Sometimes timing in the market, allowing the market to have time to develop, can give you more clue, and eventually give you a higher probable structure and directional that you can look out for. Okay, so gold, that's my take. The key area right now is somewhere between the 50% mark, 3350 to like 3360. You want to observe how price is going to move towards this key area, right? Is it going to move towards it correctively, or is it just going to go up impulsively? How it's going to develop is going to tell you a different story, like what's the probable next move. Okay, so that's on gold. Silver here is a little bit, I would say, subtle as compared to gold. Gold gives us a little more clarity, but silver here, I think this pullback to the downside overall is very, very corrective, right, as of now. So I would assume that if you are interested in buying precious metal, at least moving forward, if this is just going to continue like that, silver might present a decent buy setup, right, instead of like looking to sell. So this one here versus gold, if you take a look at it, gold is giving us a very clean momentum to the downside. Silver isn't, right? So can you look to sell it in the near term for this wave? Yeah. If you want to be a little bit more conservative, then I would suggest wait out for this to complete and look for the upside. Okay, so the key area for silver potential buy trade would be somewhere between 31.50 to 30.80, right? So that 382 retracement to 50% mark. Okay, so that's on silver side. Crude oil did change the overall structure a little bit. So last week we are anticipating a big three-wave move, right? Something like this: 1, 2, 3. We didn't really get that, and price kind of break that low, right? So right now we're looking at the possibility where this is the entire pullback, right? And there's a good chance if this is going to be corrective in nature, price can come back down and tag that low. Okay, so overall bearish. If you are looking at sell opportunities, I would say ideally you want price to actually come and test this area. Okay, ideally you want the market to do something like this. Okay, you want to attack the key level. Okay, and then that's the area that you can look out for sell opportunity. All right, so that's on crude oil. Again, in terms of target, you probably wouldn't want to aim too far. Potentially where that previous low is would simply be a good, I would say, good enough target, right? Now, can crude oil go lower than that? Yes, but we are already pretty close to the floor, right? So crude oil being what I call an industrial utility, which means the demand for crude oil will naturally be there unless it's being replaced by another resources, right? There are demand for crude oil in the industrial perspective, okay? And when there's a natural demand, if prices goes too low, it tends to get supported, right? And if you put yourself in the supplier perspective, is that if the prices of crude oil is too low, then it doesn't make sense to sell it, right? And it doesn't make sense to produce it as well, right? Because then it becomes so cheap that they might not make sufficient margin to cover their business costs and things like that, right? So naturally, when we reach that kind of perspective, that kind of level, supply would drop, demand would naturally still be there, and then just based on that natural economic principles, prices will eventually be shoot back out, right? Because there's demand, there's a lack of supply, prices goes up, right? So it doesn't mean that you can't sell it. It just means that whenever prices goes towards some significant low point, okay, you just want to be cautious, right? I mean, this one here is, I would say technical glitch, but if you kind of take away that, okay, we are technically in a pretty low point, right? This chart here kind of got skilled, but 33 to 34, that's the previous low you can see here, right? Though it's a bit small, you can see 1, 2, 3. So that's about 30 plus. Okay, now we're not really that far off, to be very, very honest. So I would say, any short, you want to be a little bit more aggressive in taking profits, right? Whether you're going to take partial profits, let the remaining position run or not. That's my take on crude oil. Okay. So yeah, technical wise, it's definitely still bearish. In terms of like trade plan, you might want to wait for a corrective pullback towards the key level and see if you can get the sell set up. S&P 500, we are potentially shifting back towards a bullish mode, right? There are some earlier fears about tariff and things, that pushes the S&P lower, but since then we've been bouncing up quite good. Current technical point of view, this is definitely the invalidation level, the swing low, 5100. Okay, and right now is that if price can maintain above this level, you want to primarily be expecting more upside. Okay, but obviously you don't want to be buying here. you want to wait for a corrective pullback, right? And potentially back towards where this minor low is, putting you at 5430. Okay, so if you're looking to buy, my take is wait for price to pull back towards 5430. You might get some sort of a liquidity sweep there, and then you look for an upside, and then this would be the target in the near term. Okay, 5790, right? So why is it there? We're just basing a three-wave development, WXY. Okay, so based on the projection, that will put us around 5790. Okay, so this is on S&P. If you're looking at NASDAQ, the overall structure generally they are the same. Owing, this one is a little bit tricky. I mean, I'm looking at overall upside. Okay, the tricky part here is this pullback phase, right? Are we gonna get a deeper pullback, or are we just gonna, end off this pullback while respecting this low and then another push up? The structure overall is slightly different from dollar yen, right? Because dollar yen, it's a clear 1, 2, 3, and then we can expect continuation up. Pound yen here is a bit tricky because this leg here, right? So that's the part where I'm expecting, instead of a simple WXY in terms of like three-way structure, I'm kind of projecting this to be wave 3, which means this is going to be extended, right? So that's where I'm coming from, and we get this impulsive move, right, that break that high. So to me, this is a clear invalidation level, which means if price actually break below that, structurally we need to update itself. Maybe then this would just be a simple 1, 2, 3, but just a little bit extended, and then a deeper pullback before the upside, right? So this level is pretty significant, right? If price actually break below that, the overall structure may need to be updated itself. But if price can respect that, then we can see this as wave 3, and then eventually wave 4 will pull back, and then one more push up, right? Yeah, so that's on pound yen, right? So right now, if you go down to the lower time frame, we may get something there. Okay, this is coming down, slowing down as well, right? There's a little bit of liquidity sweep. This can happen. If this the structure, then of course that would be pretty ideal, right? That would be pretty ideal for this setup itself. So one additional pointer here, if you're looking at trading the dollar yen up as well as the pound yen up, just factor in the risk exposure on yen, right? Because both pairs you're looking to buy them, and essentially if you're buying the dollar yen, you're buying the pound yen, you're selling the yen 2 times, right? If you're doing it concurrently. So just factor that risk exposure. Okay, Aussie yen, I'm looking at it at a slightly different perspective in terms of the overall structure and direction. Is that Aussie yen here, we're looking at a possibility of a leading diagonal 5-wave. Therefore, then we're expecting some sort of a pullback, potentially coming back towards like this level, right? Okay, so we're kind of looking at possibly something like this. And if that's going to be the case, short term might open up a sell possible short term trade. Of course, you need some criteria over here, on the lower time frame, some sort of liquidity sweep, break of structure, and then a pullback that will open up the sell side possible, right? And then this will be the key level for target and sell, and then switch it back up, right? So that's my take on odd yen. Okay, the short term possible sell setup might come after the midweek as well, right? Maybe somewhere between Wednesday and Thursday, it might set up something. As I mentioned, we want to see some sort of liquidity sweep, break of structure back down in the lower time frame, and then that gives us an indication that, all right, the pullback is starting. We can look at the short-term sell. Okay, and then after that, we can then rotate back and look for the buy. Okay, so yeah, that's my take on odd yen. Pound Australia, okay, definitely bearish. The higher time frame sequence is still neutral, but definitely shifting towards bearish bias, right? So this can be seen as a 1, 2, 3. If this pulls back correctively, we can look to sell. Okay, and to update this invalidation level, I think it's safe to say this will be the updated invalidation level. Right. Okay. So the idea here is price has to respect this high in order for us to maintain a bearish point of view, right? So this one here, neutral, turning bearish. Okay, or at least the expectation here is price might be turning bearish. So as of now, it's a little bit too early, but eventually we want to see some sort of a corrective pullback to give us that sell side opportunity. Okay. Okay. Bitcoin. So BTC over here, short term, we are expecting some sort of pullback. Overall structure and direction is definitely still bullish, right? Again, you can see this is the invalidation level. As long as price remain above that, general direction is upside. But in the near term, we are expecting price to pull back towards this zone. Okay, this can also be seen as a simple WXY potentially completed. We have a little bit of diagonal here, right? So the confirmation is we want price to break below that swing low, right? If you can get that, it kind of start to indicate, all right, the pullback is starting. Then you can look to trade a short-term sell towards this area, and then from there flip it back up towards the buy side. Okay, so just wait for that break of that swing low to give us that confirmation that all right, price is indeed coming down. Let's look for a sell side retracement trade. Okay. Yeah, so those are some of the updates I have. A couple of watch lists, couple of pairs to be included in the watch list includes Aussie dollar, I would say, potential. But I think this is like the least of the concern. The one that you probably want to put more attention to is dollar Canadian. We talk about dollar again, gold potentially there as well. Pound yen, right? And then of course Aussie yen. So this I feel is these few ones that are highlighted are the ones that you will probably want to pay a little bit more attention compared to the others. All right. Great. So let's see, right? One of you actually asked about euro pound. Let's take a quick look at that. Okay. This is how I would view it as of now. This gives me a pretty clear three-wave structure. This would put us at the invalidation high. Okay, we get a clean break below that. So right now, I would say if we can pull back correctively, okay, we've got to put in some fits. Okay, maybe the 618 there. If we can pull back correctively, that would suggest more downside, right? Of course, the context here is we are anticipating price to make a deeper pullback. All right, so you're looking at this as one swing up, and then this will be 1, 2, 3. All right, that will be the main focus in terms of the overall direction, right? So 1, 2, 3 over here. What we can also observe, okay, of course, that would be a very clean break. We have this market imbalance here, which might, be the attraction of price to come back down. Okay. So short term, that will be the focus. Potentially back towards like 8,415. Okay. After which, then price might continue to go higher, right? Because then this would be the current swing low. Okay. So that's my take on the euro pound. Good. Hope that's clear. Um, any other things that you guys would like to clarify? All good? Cool. Yeah, so I hope today's session has been helpful, okay, in terms of like covering some of the key ones and what are some of the opportunities that I think it's worth adding into your watch list. Okay, so let's see how the market's going to develop from here. And yeah, all the best for the week. And as usual, talk to you guys next Monday. Okay, so all the best.